My preference for the best budget broadcast microphone may be on the line today, and it just took a microphone with a little bit more cash behind it to possibly take the crown. Welcome back to the Rebel Tech channel. I'm Justin, and in this video we're going to be doing a comparison between my favorite, the PD-70 of the budget broadcast genre, and the newcomer, the Shure MV7X, the XLR version of the Shure MV7. And I'm really interested to see if this comparison goes differently than other ones that I've done against the PD-70, because I don't think I've had a contender like this yet. I think this is the strongest competitor in the budget genre, obviously, against the Shure SM7B. It came down to just the fact that I like the Shure SM7B, but it's almost 4 times as much. But regardless, this is a cool comparison because they're right around the same price range. Maybe you save a little bit of money and go for the PD-70, but maybe you don't want to save the money and go for the brand name, the Shure brand name. So without any further ado, let's talk about the builds of these things. And these things are built pretty well. I will say that I prefer the PD-70 body a little bit more, but I do prefer the yoke mount on the Shure MV7, which is tough for me because when it comes to rejection of noise, this one definitely does not do as well as this one. So let's just do a quick tap of the microphone stand. The mount. The half yoke mount on the PD-70. And the body. Same thing over here, yoke mount. And the body. Let me know what you think in the comments and see which one is better at that. So, as far as the builds are concerned, I think it's pretty much even, because there are certain things on one that I like than the other, and vice versa. If they were put together, if this had a full yoke mount, it would have won. Just my personal preference. Originally, I thought it was cool, and now I just feel like it was a bad decision design-wise. So, tie and going into that. Now, let's get into some techie talk and talk about how these things are with the specs, tech, and everything like that. I'll leave up a graphic for you with all the specs, and then I'll talk about the ones that actually stand out to me. So when you look at the specs here, they're pretty much identical. You have both dynamic, both cardioid. Their sensitivity is off by 1 decibel, so it's not that big of a deal. When it comes to the impedance, it is a little bit different, maybe off by 100, but for the most part, people who are using these are not going to notice that specification that much. Where they are in difference is the frequency response. And if you've been here before, and if you know what I feel, the frequency response curve is the most important thing about a microphone because it shows how the microphone was tuned. T-shirt pending, possibly, if someone was interested. So first up, let's talk about the low end on the Shure MV7X. It has a natural low cutoff that starts around 50, going up, and then steadily rising as it goes into the low mids and the mids. It's kind of wavy, and that's the best way I could explain it. It's very wavy and increases periodically. Not too crazy of a slope, but it's nice and steady. The issue I have with it is it doesn't flatten out at any point in the midsection, which we'll get into the mids in just a sec. Moving over to the PD-70, it has a natural low cutoff, but it's a full low cutoff, meaning that it goes down to 20. And there's flexibility to manipulate it afterwards. Then it moves into the low mids and flattens out and into the mids. Rolling right into that with the PD-70 in the mids, it's fairly flat. Little bumps here and there, but until you get up to 1K, you really don't notice a major difference. Going back to the MV7, it just keeps going up. I mean, it's not that drastic of a increase, but it's still a steady increase as you move on into the highs and the high mids. So so far, I like the PD-70 better. Now, as we go into the highs with the Shure MV7X, you got a little bit of presence boost here and there, but nothing too crazy, very tasteful. But it does stop at 16. Depending on the source, it might be good, might be bad. You want to have a little bit of headroom there too, so you don't want to be too drastic with that. So I don't know. Depends on the person and depends on the source that you're putting into it. With the PD-70, like I said, it goes all the way to 20 and has the presence boost, and it goes to like a nice like boost there in the whole highs and all of that. Peaks and valleys, but they're not like crazy up and down. And then it goes down at 20 like a normal microphone does. And that is what I love about it. That's what I love about the PD-70 and its frequency response. It's very flexible, meaning that there's so much there that you could work with. And I feel like these microphones that they market as a broadcast microphone for streaming and stuff like that and podcasting, I feel like they're hurting their content creators in the sense that they're making it, I don't want to say too easy, because just because it's tuned a certain way doesn't mean it makes sense for everyone. And you're kind of hurting yourself. You're hurting your brand, meaning that, oh, it's made for a certain amount of people or a certain type of person. It doesn't make it sense, because if you make it so that it's flexible to EQ and manipulate on the back end, then you're opening up more people to being able to use it, flexibility to use it. But on the other side, you could say, oh, some people don't want to do EQ. They don't want to just mess around with the post-processing. They just want to plug and play, which is understandable. I get it, but I don't know. However you feel about it, let me know down in the comments and let's discuss this. I want to have a conversation about this. Do you want something that's more flexible, meaning that it has a wider range and a little more flat so you can manipulate it how you want? Or are you a person that just wants to plug and play and get it going, not waste any time with any post-processing? So I'm interested in seeing where you guys are at with this. But for me personally, PD-70 is a landslide on this one. It's close in the low end, but other than that, I feel like it's better in most sections. All right, weird angle here, I know. I appreciate your honesty in telling me that it's a weird angle. So what we're going to do is I'm going to be quiet for a bit, boost it, and let you know how the noise test goes. And just so you know, there's a dehumidifier in the other room, just for context, and maybe some people walking upstairs. So I'll shut up for a bit. All right, so a little bit of walking and a little bit of dehumidifier in the other room. Next thing we're going to do is a distance and off-axis rejection. All right, I'm about 2 feet away from the fronts of the microphones. This one is going to sound like in the studio down here. If you haven't been around for the last couple of comparisons, I obviously flipped the room around. I'm recording towards my desk now. And I use the booth as kind of like a dampener of reflective noise, so there's not any reflection back. It wasn't terrible, but I wanted to optimize it as best as I can. And it's a work in progress. It obviously is not perfect yet, but I think it's getting to the point where I can make it sound a little bit better and more contained, I should say. All right, 90-degree test on the PD-70 side. This is the off-axis rejection on 2 cardioid polar pattern microphones, speaking towards a wall with a lot of stuff on it. So probably not a lot of reflection back, but it is not treated. So you might get a little bit of echo, but not like reflection. Sometimes there's a difference there. So with a lot of stuff, the sound bounces around a lot more, so it doesn't reflect back. So let me know what you think on this side. Moving over to the Shure MV7 side, a little closer, about a foot away. And this was going to be like with the off-axis rejection. And speaking towards a wall with more treatment, the moving blankets are certainly helpful in this. And I noticed in the couple of examples that I've done so far, it definitely reduces that reflection. And I'm very excited to start streaming with this kind of setup. It's not that big of a deal, and I don't think anyone's going to really notice it, but I know that I'll feel better about it knowing that I did some work. It might mean nothing to you guys, but it certainly means a lot to me. So let me know if you notice the difference between the 90s. Alright, 180-degree test about 2 feet away from the rears of the microphones. This is the off-axis rejection in the studio right now, speaking towards those moving blankets, aka the booth, and this is what it's going to be like. Obviously, these are both cardioids, so they have rejection in the back and maybe some bounce back, but I think that it's pretty good. I've had a couple of examples I listened to, and I think it really does help. Maybe some reflection this way, but mostly this way, but not much. Maybe off the ceiling, but it's a wood ceiling, so it doesn't reflect too much. So let me know what you think in the comments, and to the booth. Okay, so we got the Shure MV7X and the Presonus PD-70 in the booth right now, and it's going to be a tough one for me because the Presonus has been my choice for the budget option in the broadcast variety. The Shure MV7X, on the other hand, it's pretty good. I don't know if it's definitely better or worse yet. I will definitely let you guys know in the outro of my final decision, but it's good. It's a good microphone. And they have very similar curves in the sense of the low and the highs. The mids are obviously different, but when the highs and lows are compared, when we spoke about it in the frequency response curve, now I'm translating that to audible source and audible sound and listening to it. And of course, it's tough to analyze things in real time because of your own voice and everything like that, but this is my impressions right now, and obviously when I'm done editing, I will let you know how it goes. So before I forget, let's get the plosives out of the way, and then I'll talk about the tone afterwards. So the Shure MV7X. Oh, God, that's rough. Then the PD-70. Okay, so now I'm listening to the PD-70, and I really like this the way that it definitely presents it in like a neutral tone. Like I said, this is a great microphone for the simple fact that I feel that it has a lot of flexibility when it comes to editing, and the nice high presence is tough to get naturally because you get more of a hiss because those hisses are there. So if you get it naturally to the microphone, it's not as bad. Then we go to the MV7X, and you got more of a low presence, but that high presence is still pretty similar. Like I was telling you, it's very similar in that high end, and you could see they're both emphasized in those areas very similarly. And that's the main thing that I'm hearing when I'm comparing these two. When it comes to the low end, if you get a little closer, then you notice that it definitely emphasizes a little more. Let's do a little more on the PD-70. So you notice that those lows are not as rumbly, but they're there. It's a different type of tone. This is the different type of tone, and I feel that if I put a different pop screen or windscreen on this to suppress some of that, maybe it might be better. And actually, that's a good idea. Okay, so the PD-70 now has the regular windscreen for the Shure SM7B on it now. And this has been a surprise to me, mostly because I didn't know if it fit or not. And then also the fact that I really like the way that it sounds. And the rejection of plosives is nice. I definitely noticed some extra low ends because this is a little more thicker than the one that is provided with the PD-70. So keep that in mind. If you want, you could get that on Amazon, I think. You could get it pretty cheap. And it might not be the exact one, but it's similar. So keep that in mind when you're getting these microphones. Let's go back to the MV7X. And what I notice here when I go back and forth is definitely a... For my voice, at least, this is tough. This is a good sounding microphone when I compare it. I don't know, the PD-70 might be in trouble. I gotta admit, if we ever have another budget broadcast battle, I might have to put this in there. I like best microphone under $200. Boy. Going back to the PD-70. And here's the thing. I always go back to the PD-70, and there's just something about it that I really like. And maybe because it complements my voice, but going from here where I'm listening to it and I have that nice low end when I get close to it, and I also think of how much flexibility I have on the back end. With the Shure MV7, it's actually a comparison of darker and lighter. This is definitely a lighter tone, and this is a little more darker. You definitely notice that emphasis in that rumbly low end, that nice like bed of lowness, darkness, very similar to the Shure SM7B. I mean, it's obviously not the Shure SM7B, which the comparison is out, and you guys can check it out. And I don't know. It's a tough one. I'll let you know how I feel in the outro. But before that, let's go into the untreated room and give you a more relatable environment to your audible needs. Okay, untreated room with the PD-70 and the Shure MV7X. And we're going to do some off-axis rejection. And I won't do a noise test because it just, I noticed that it really doesn't make much of a difference. If I do one noise test, it really just represents all of it. This room is not much different than the studio area as far as rejection of noise. The off-axis rejection is where it's really where it matters, and I will only be doing the noise test for the studio probably from now on. I just feel like I get more value out of the video, and I could save some more time and focus on things that actually make more of a difference as far as like off-axis rejection and stuff like that. So 2-3 inches away from the microphone right now, backing up. About a foot away from the fronts of the microphones. This is what it's going to sound like in an untreated room. This room is my old bedroom, about 10 by 10, wood floors with an area rug above it, which makes a big difference. And there's a lot of stuff in this room, so it could be relative to anybody's bedroom or something like that, their recording space, because not everybody has a little studio or anything semi-professional or professional. So keep that in mind when you're listening to this off-axis rejection and have a lay of the land. Let's do the 90. All right, 90-degree test on the PD-70 side. Speaking towards the windows on the other side of the room, could be some reflection, not rejection, reflection off the walls and the windows. So let me know what you think down in the comments on what the rejection is with both of these mics. Remember, they're both cardioid, so they should have the same type of rejection with their off-axis. Next, we're going to do 180. All right, 180-degree test. This is what it's going to be like in the untreated room. So speaking towards the windows and a wall, there's a lot of stuff in the room. These microphones should have some pretty good rejection of the rear noise. And like I said, they're both cardioid, so they should have that rejection of the back. All right, there's your off-axis rejection in the untreated room. And if I missed anything or if there's something specific you want to see, I could always do something for you and let you know, maybe a short or maybe something else. I could give you an audio sample or something like that. So let me know down in the comments what you think. And now to the studio to give you my overall thoughts on these mics. So as you can see, I stuck with the PD-70 as my favorite so far. There might be one that comes up one day that might take the crown. But with this comparison, it was one of those where I went back and forth with a lot of like listening and analysis of each part. And it was very difficult for me to pinpoint where this comparison was going to go. Now, the first thing that stood out and the first thing that really was leaning me towards going back to the PD-70 was the fact that you can manipulate this microphone much more than the Shure MV7X. Granted, out of the box, at least on my voice, I like it a little bit more as a broadcast microphone, not necessarily a voiceover microphone. It's completely different. A broadcast microphone has that like darker, boomier sound. if that's what you're looking for. But quote-unquote generic and typical, stereotypical broadcast microphone. With a voiceover microphone, you want a little more neutral so that it's manipulative, and you want more range so that you can have the flexibility to make it sound the way you want. There are exceptions to the rule, but at least in my case, and in a lot of cases, this is how it usually is. Granted, also, voiceover work is usually done with a condenser, but if you want, you could do it with a dynamic. I mean, it's all about how you perform, and if the quality's up to par, which this microphone will be up to par for most cases, you can make it sound pretty good, especially if you have a treated area. I know it's a dynamic and you don't necessarily need a treated area, but it certainly helps. So one more thing I want to point out were some things that offset each other. So the handling noise on the PD-70 was less than the Shure MV7X. The plosive rejection was less on the Shure MV7X than the PD-70. So those kind of evened out, and that was it. When I was looking at or listening, I should say, the noise and the off-axis rejection, these microphones were pretty on par with each other. I really couldn't find a leaning of one way or another, but I definitely feel that they were pretty spot on with each other with the off-axis rejection. Granted, they're both cardioid polar patterns, so it makes sense. With the tone next, I do feel that it's a neutral tone on the PD-70. It's got that more airier sound with the wider range of frequency response, and it has that definitely more vast high end in the presence. There's more boost there rather than the Shure MV7X, which has very specific parts of it that are boosted. But the Shure MV7X is cut off at 16, and on the other side it's at 50. So a brighter microphone here, a darker microphone there, and really depends on who is using it. For me personally, and I keep saying this, and I've been consistent throughout my opinions about this, I choose this microphone because of the flexibility that it has on the back end. Out of the box, it's neutral. It's a little flat, has nice high-end presence, and if you get close enough like this, you got some decent low-end presence. But I do feel that you need to manipulate it a little bit to fit the certain person that you're putting in front of it. And for me personally, I have done EQs and stuff like that in a couple of videos, which I will have a dedicated video on the PD-70 and other microphones as well. But the PD-70 and the AT2020 are going to be the first two that go out of me manipulating it for my voice at least, and maybe you can use those templates for your own use and maybe manipulate them further. It's a good starting point. So if you're interested in videos like that, let me know down in the comments, and we can talk about specific things you want me to go into with editing these microphones, because that's the next step. I've covered a lot of microphones in this on this channel, and I do feel like the next step is showing how you would post-process these things and post-process them in every way that you can. Eventually, I will start doing acoustic guitar and maybe electric guitar if I ever buy an amp again. I used to have an amp, it broke. I think it's actually in the back there that I just use as set piece. Sometimes I throw a light in there. But regardless, I'm getting off topic. So, PD-70, the winner in this, and still my favorite. The Shure MV7X is a solid number 2, maybe 1B. If you feel differently, let me know down in the comments. All I ask is to be respectful and just be nice. Be constructive, and let's have a discussion about it. Not an argument, just have a discussion about it, because everyone has different opinions. Some people like my voice on this microphone, some people like it on the Shure MV7X. So let me know what you think, and we'll talk about it. So that all being said, thank you all for watching. Hope you all enjoyed it. If you liked the video, please hit the like button down below. It'd be greatly appreciated. Helps this video, helps this channel, and you know that whole YouTube algorithm thing, it does mean a lot. If you like my vibe around here, please consider subscribing. It would mean a lot as well. We are right on the cusp of getting to 1,500 subscribers and hopefully get 2,000 sometime in the near future. I'm really looking forward to those milestones popping up over the course of 2022 and the years to come. And like I said, comments, leave it down in the comment section. Just be constructive, be nice. You know the rules. And of course, until next time, take care, and I'll see you in the next video.